Hello friends, welcome back. In the previous video of this series, we assembled this enclosure here for the SCELBI 8B computer. Finished the front panel here with all the switches. I actually added some switch caps here, or switch boots, I forget what they're called. So it kind of looks a little colorful now. But also we wired it up inside the enclosure with all the I/O ports, the switches and all that. So now the enclosure is finished, the power supply is finished, which we did in a video before the previous one. So in this video, we'll be working on well, I guess start working on the PCBs of the computer. And if we look at the manual here, the manual starts right here in my little binder here that I made. But basically, this manual here, it has a lot of good information here on soldering and how to actually install different components, which I actually recommend that it be read if anybody wants to start the assembly of the computer. And it actually starts the assembly, or at least it has the details about the first board here, which is the CPU board, 1100. But the thing is with the way the computer is organized, if we look on, I forget which page it's on, but it's the same page that we looked at in the previous video when we were assembling the enclosure. There's a certain order to all the boards in the computer, and we want to basically follow the same order when we assemble the computer in our case. So for example, right here we can see that the CPU is actually the second board, but I'm actually going to start with the first board, which is the front panel board. So we'll do this one first. In the next video we'll probably do the CPU and so on. So on this page right here, it's not too far from the beginning of the manual. It has a little description of the front panel board, and then it gives us like instructions on installing all the components of the front panel board, which we'll probably follow, but not 100% as described there. And the next page here has the layout of all the components, which we will actually have to reference when we install the components. We'll keep that as a reference. And I don't know why it was skipped like that. This should be the page after it, but the page after it is actually additional instructions on installing the other components, which we'll do as well. Now, if we skip over quite a bit of pages down the manual, actually, it's unfortunate that not all these pages actually have page numbers, because that would actually help out a lot. But there's a page that starts with the heading, the SCELBI 1104 front panel card. It has some details about the card and how it actually works by buffering data and things like that. And it also gives us some power information, basically power requirements. So that might be useful. The next page actually is the schematic for the front panel board, which might be useful when we debug it. And the page after that is actually the parts list, which we will need to reference when we collect all the parts, which, by the way, is what I have right here. And that is pretty much it. So again, I'll be referencing the parts list probably, but I already have all the parts, but might still reference it. I will need to reference this page here when we assemble the board. So I have all the parts here in front of me. I have a bunch of LEDs here, and the manual actually calls for a specific model number of LED. Those LEDs are no longer available for sale publicly or on the public market. You might still find them on eBay or some other place like that, but they're not currently being manufactured. So I found these LEDs here. They kind of look small with a flat or a semi-flat top here. I thought they looked pretty cool, so I'm going to use these, and I think we need 29 of them. We need a couple of resistors. There's one, I think 560 or somewhere around, yeah, 560 ohm, and quite a bit of 1K ohm resistors, which I have in this pack right here. We need a Zener diode, which is a 6.2 or 6.3 volts. We need fuse holders here, and also a fuse. It's I think a 3/8 amp fuse. A couple of capacitors, and you might be wondering what these are here. These are actually IC sockets. So this is how they work. You basically, if we take the PCB here, for example, we'll basically insert them into these positions here where the ICs go, solder it in, and then this top part, this metal plate here, it basically removes, and we can insert the IC into the pins, and you basically don't have that plastic plastic pins that are pretty standard nowadays. I thought these look pretty cool. They kind of look like the SolderCon sockets that were available back in the day. Okay, let's go ahead and start the assembly. And we'll follow the instructions outlined in the manual here to an extent. It starts off by installing the ICs, but we won't be installing the ICs directly since we'll be installing these IC sockets for them, and then we'll insert the ICs into them. But we'll actually skip that, and we'll start with the resistors, and the reason why is because they're lower profile. So let's go ahead and begin the assembly with the resistors. Okay, so we got the resistors installed. I actually went ahead and installed the diode here as well. We need to make sure that it's oriented correctly with that stripe facing up or away from us. The next thing we can install are the IC sockets. And I just wanted to let you know that these boards, actually the whole set, is available for sale at Calling.com if anybody's interested in building this SCELBI computer. Okay, so let's go ahead and install the IC sockets, and we're going to start by installing the larger ones first, just so we don't accidentally install a smaller one to a larger footprint. So we'll start installing the 16-pin ones first. There are actually only 2 of them. And then I'll just apply some tape over top of it just to kind of keep it in place while I flip it over. Because once I flip it over and place it upside down, the surface here will actually keep the IC sockets in place. Then we can just kind of push it down a little bit. Okay, let's go ahead and solder them in. We could go ahead and remove these plates here off the sockets or the pins, and we can insert the IC sockets into them, but I'm actually going to leave the plate in for now, just so that we don't bend the pins while we install the remainder of the components. We'll go ahead and install the LEDs next, and according to the instructions here, it says to orient them so that the anode of the LED, the shorter lead, it says, goes in the topmost hole. And I'm not sure if that's correct, actually. Maybe that's how the older LEDs were, but with the modern LEDs, this shorter lead is actually the cathode and not the anode. And that's the minus side. We want to have the minus side facing down, or down towards the connector here. And the longer side, the positive side, will face up, and if we look at the traces here, we can see that the top trace here, they're all connected together. And if we look at the schematic here, let's take a look at the schematic just so we can kind of verify this. So yeah, all the LEDs are connected together on the positive side, and that positive side actually runs right here through fuse 1 and positive 5 volts. So we know that all that trace that connects all of them together is actually the positive side, and the positive side is the anode side. And the anode side is usually the longer lead, at least in the modern LED. So we'll install it with the longer lead facing up or away from us or away from the connector. I think that looks pretty good. So we got a couple of things left to solder in, and that is the fuse holder and also the capacitors. And I think we'll install this electrolytic capacitor first, since it's lower profile than the fuse holders. And let's just make sure that we orient it correctly. I think the positive side is on this side right here, has a little plus. We just want to make sure that we align it with the positive sign on the PCB. And now we can go ahead and install the fuse holders. They just drop into the footprints here pretty well. I think it might be a good idea to go ahead and install the fuse into the holders, just so that it keeps the fuse holders straight while we solder them in. Okay, I guess we'll just leave the fuse in here, and let's go ahead and install the ceramic capacitors here. We have two 0.1 microfarads and also a single, I think it's a 0.02. 0.02 goes right over here. And the 0.1s go in, one goes here and one goes in on the right side here. I decided to go with lower profile disc capacitors, and the reason why is because there's not much room when we insert these PCBs in here. There's not much clearance between each board. We could, I guess, bend the capacitors to make it fit, but I decided to just go with lower profile components. Okay, so the last thing that we will need to do is insert the ICs. I'm going to make sure that we reference this layout here for each IC. We can go ahead and remove these plates here from the IC sockets. I'll use a screwdriver for that. It should just pop off. Yeah, and you see how nice and straight these pins are. That's really good. Let's take a look at those pins. Oh, they look really good. It's like installing those SolderCon pins, but these are actually much easier probably to install, because you just insert the whole thing in there, solder it in, and then just remove the plate, the holder, and we're good to go. Okay, let's go ahead and install the ICs. And so the first one here, Z1, is 74L04. I think we need to make sure that it's an L04, not an LS04 or 7404. There might be a reason why it's like that, but I remember having a similar issue, or somebody having a similar issue with using the wrong variant of the 7404, and the front panel wasn't working properly. Oh yeah, that looks great. I really like how these IC sockets work. They're really easy to work with, and they look great. I did notice that I missed one pin here. Let me reinsert this IC. Okay, yeah, that's perfect. And another benefit of these IC sockets is you can actually see under the ICs here. It's pretty good clearance here for them, so you can see when there's a bent pin. All right, I think that looks great, and we're finished with the board. I actually want to insert it into the computer right now and try it out. Most of these LEDs will not work, or they might light up because that's the default state, but they won't really They're not tied to anything yet. Basically, the latches are not latching anything. So all the memory address, memory contents, the run status and stop, signal LEDs. These require the CPU board, and also the page numbers. Again, that's the memory. But we might see the positive 5 volts and minus 9 volts here, LEDs light up. So let me go ahead and insert it into the computer and give it a shot. Alright, got the computer right here. And let's go ahead and insert into slot 1. Fit pretty well. That's what it looks like on the front. I think it looks great. Alright, so let's go ahead and plug in the power supply. Okay, so I got that plugged in. And now for the moment of truth, let me power on the power supply. It's actually sitting on the side here to my right. And I just had to turn on and then it went off, and I think I know why. I think the fuse that I have in the power supply is probably not rated high enough. So let me see if I can insert a working fuse into it and a little bit something a little higher, maybe like a 1 amp. I just changed the fuse to a 1.5 amp, so let's try it again. Okay, so this time it works, and this is what it looks like on the front. The LEDs are on, and of course, as we were predicting, most of the LEDs are on because that's probably the default state of the latches. But we know that the power is coming in, so we have the positive 5 volts and minus 9 volt LEDs lit up, so that's good. I hope you enjoyed watching this video of the assembly of the front panel. So far it looks pretty good, but we can't really test it yet until we have the other boards assembled and inserted into the computer. And we'll do that in future videos. There are some testing instructions in the manual that might be a good idea to do before we actually power it on, just to kind of make sure we don't burn anything. So I'd actually recommend doing that if you're assembling this board. I actually already did it, and it's just as simple as just checking the resistance between two traces. Okay, so the front panel's finished. In the next video, we'll assemble the CPU board. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.